So I have an important question for you.
Alright.
If you're a vampire,
Yeah.
can you contract or spread STDs? Because you're sucking some blood.
Yeah.
How do you know, especially in 2020, what kind of blood you're sucking?
Well, in that True Blood show, there was a version of hepatitis that only affected vampires. That normal people, if they had it in them, it didn't do them anything. But if they went then to try to suck them, that they would end up getting sick and dying. Because that was the plot point of for an episode or two, a vampire killed somebody's brother or wife, so he got it and then was trying to get them to suck on him as revenge. But then there was a lady that could read minds and told him, and so it didn't happen.
I feel the best kind of revenge is when you get someone to suck on you.
Yeah.
I think there's a whole genre of fiction there you could write about dirty vampire STDs.
Oh, yeah.
You should write that genre.
Should I?
I don't know. I'm tired, man. It's raining. This is a perfect day for Dracula talk.
Right?
Rainy, cold.
October.
Lots of castles in the distance. Yeah, fucking October. Oh, man. There's the things we gotta talk about in this one. We might as well just get to it there, boy. I'm about to suck your blood. Oh. Dracula Talk 2008. What decade is this?
A bad one.
Bad one?
Just pick a bad one.
So pretty much throw a dart at a board?
Yeah.
Looking for there.
I dropped my phone and I couldn't see where it bounced, and it bounced all the way by the wiring.
Oh, not the wiring. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me today, I don't know if I used this one already or not, Spencer of the Vancouver Vampire Church.
I don't think so. You've done something with vampires or something like that before, but I don't think Vancouver.
I don't know if I like it then. The Georgia germaphobe. Oh no, that's not a good one. Is there a country that starts with an X? I don't think so.
Probably, I don't know.
Anyway.
I'm sure there's something where they're listening and they're like, you assholes!
You asshole, how dare you not talk about Zanzibar? This is just the end of Dracula. We finished it. So,
yeah, we did.
What is that? Chapters 20 to end? 27 or something?
27 and then notes.
I don't remember exactly where we left off because I forgot to listen to the playback.
I think 20 started with their wasn't that pretty much their journey to it was right around whenever they tried to go to the house to get Dracula.
I know where we left off.
And I think it's he escaped, and I think they had to he was on a boat and
hold your horses. We didn't get that far.
No?
I'll give you a brief recap. Lucy's dead.
Yes.
Renfield tells them all about Dracula, then he dies.
Yeah.
And they catch where we left off. They catch Dracula in the act of sucking on Mina.
Yeah.
And now this might be a part of the lore of how one gets turned into a vampire. He was forcing her to suck his blood out of his chest because he made a wound. And they caught him. And Jonathan was kind of a cuck in this scene. He was just watching. I mean, I guess he was hypnotized or something, but he was just in the corner. Very disturbing. And it was a very ethereal, misty, really cool scene when they bust in on Dracula doing the nasty, as far as, fucking Draculas do it. Vampires. So, Dracula escapes. Did they turn into a bat or a mist again? How do you fucking get out of there? Or was there something with a wolf?
Maybe.
I thought a wolf came in. There was a lot happening here. It's not really that important to the story.
Well, after he escapes, then that's when they go to the... No, that's whenever because they went to because he does that when they're at his house trying to find him, and they tell Mina no, you gotta stay back, it's too dangerous. And then so what happens? She stays back, and then she gets stuck down by a dirty vampire.
I really enjoyed Dracula, but now we're gonna get into the dirty filth of things we didn't like about Dracula. Yeah. One is what you just said. Stupid trope of always leave the most...
viable person?
Yeah, the person who's who needs the most protection, we're going to leave them alone all the fucking time. They didn't learn their lesson with Lucy, who they kept leaving, and she kept getting sucked, and then she died.
And I don't even think like you really need to leave Mina alone. She didn't seem like the kind of character... You know, she seemed like, you know, had a good head on her shoulder.
Yeah.
It wasn't like she would see something and she would just, like, scream and faint, you know, kind of person.
For reasons not really explained very well, they just felt they had to keep her in the dark about what was happening to her and everything with Dracula. And then she even said, I don't want to know. But I think that had to do with Dracula being able to...
like, read her mind, or, like, kind of
there's like a connection between them.
Because they used the same thing to try to figure out what Dracula was.
So I think what they worried is if she knew what their move was, Dracula would know what their move was. Which does make sense because throughout the end of this, for about 900 times, they hypnotized Mina and she could see what Dracula is. And most of it was just water, a boat.
Dark.
Dark. That would bring the second point of shit that Bram Stoker really fucked Dracula with. Very exciting story. Until he bogged it down with constant reiteration and he's just beating the fuck out of that dead horse. How many times we got to talk about Winchesters?
Yeah.
How many times do we have to go over the fucking what their plan is? How many times do we have to establish what's going on through each individual character? A lot of repetition, and that was very overdone.
And again, I think that falls within the way that the story is written. Through journal entries.
Yeah.
So that, like you said, like you were saying, and this goes throughout the whole book, just not the ending. This is throughout the whole book.
Lots of repetition.
It's because you get each every set of events, not through all of them, but most of the main characters' points of views. Mm-hmm. And so you keep on going over the same stuff over and over again.
See, that's cool if you do that when
it adds something.
Yeah, and each character sees something different or their perspective changes it. But for the most part, that wasn't the case later on earlier in the story it was because nobody was on the same page.
Yeah.
So every time you got somebody's perspective on the same incident, it might have been different. But once everyone knew what was going on, you just literally got the exact same info over and over. So that was done to death. But going back, I'm going to skip through a lot of this because this was actually pretty boring, at least to me. They went to the houses to, put the holy water in his boxes of dirt.
Yeah, because those were just boxes just for him to, like, hang out in, right?
I guess he slept in them.
Because at first, when they first introduced those boxes, I was like, oh, what about there's a vampire in each one of those boxes?
That would have been cool as shit.
Like, that's what I thought was going to go. And then they would have to go and they would have to kill all the vampires. Like, that would have been cool, but...
Instead, what we got was a very tedious section where they just went and found all these boxes to put holy water in.
And another, to add on to, like, the people's different point of views, is that not everybody refers to each other in the same name.
Yeah.
Because, like, some people would call Art, or some people would call him, like...
Lord, or Godalmain, or whatever his name was.
Yeah, what it... it's not... too many characters, so it isn't too hard to keep them together. But I remember the first couple of times I was like, wait, who the fuck? Who are they talking about right now? And then I'm like, oh, wait, that's him.
And this might be...
And I forget sometimes. Did you ever forget where you were in mid-reading? Like, if you had to stop, like, if you couldn't finish the chapter...
Who was talking?
Yeah, and you left, and you came back, and you're like, wait, who is this?
The second half of this novel, that especially when it came to Mina, that happened a lot to me. Because it would be Mina's journal or Jonathan's journal, but literally 2 or 3 paragraphs in, they switched to what Van Helsing was saying.
Yeah.
This will be a little bit nitpicky. I hated the way Van Helsing spoke.
A lot of times.
Not because it was like old-fashioned sounding. That was fine. The fact that because he was trying to get him like an accent, he would say things without being pluralized or without, like, certain words that add to it.
Friend John.
Yeah, and he did a lot of Yoda backwards talk. That was annoying. But then again, I kind of understand it because what you just said about getting lost with who was speaking, you always knew when Van Helsing was speaking. Yeah. But sometimes I'd be like, what? Wait a minute, why does Mina sound so fucking stupid? Yeah. Oh, it's Van Helsing with this fucking weird backwards talk. But when you had the same thing happen with Jonathan or Arthur, or not Arthur, I don't think he had a journal, Seward, Dr. Seward, it would get really muddled. You'd be like, wait a minute, what is happening here? But going back to the main story here, you had another scene where they were at one of Dracula's houses and they were waiting for him. And I was kind of confused on what happened. I also was confused on when things were day and night because it sounded like they were breaking into his house during the day. They got a locksmith to make it look like they were legit just homeowners and people just back then didn't care. So they went in the house and they waited for Dracula. And then when he came home, I would guess it would have to be dark. And they got like a tussle with him, and he was very strong, but then he escaped. I don't know why he wouldn't just murder the fuck out of him then.
He might have not been up to full strength, maybe?
Maybe. It didn't really explain. Like, it was a really rushed scene for something that's, you know, their main encounter with Dracula thus far. Should have been really cool. I felt that was rushed. And then just a lot of stuff that happened that didn't really need all this exposition. Them going to Transylvania. The last chapters I struggled like fuck to get through because all this talk about the goddamn boat, and like we said, they kept hypnotizing Mina so she could tell, because she could see what Dracula sees when she's hypnotized. It got to the point where they're doing it every other sentence, or like every other paragraph. They would hypnotize her, and then all I see is dark and I hear water, and over for chapters. Bram Stoker should have condensed all that into just, he was on the boat and then he got to Transylvania and just went to the finale. And I know we probably skipped a bunch of stuff, but I feel like it wasn't even really important to the plot because they did do a lot of explaining about vampire lore and stuff.
And then also during that period, like how we were talking about, like it'd be getting confusing because different times, like they would then like one person's journal entry, they would go like 2 or 3 days, and then when they would
go backwards,
and when
again.
they skipped to another person's entry, they would go back, and you would have to reiterate through all that stuff.
So you'd literally have Mina's journal go from October 30th, October 31st, and then all up to like November 3rd, and then we jump back to like October 31st for John or somebody else, and you're just like, wait a minute. And there's a couple times too where they call Dr. John Seward. They call him John, or Jonathan Harker, somebody would call John, and you're like, well, which fucking John are we talking about here? So I found...
And was it just me, or the only time that we had an entry from Van Helsing was at the end, right? He didn't have any entries in the beginning of it, other than maybe like a telegraph or something like that.
He had telegraphs, and then eventually he had like phonograph entries. Because, most of the time it was others speaking, telling you what he said.
Because really, if anybody out of that group I want to hear,
him.
Yeah, because he knows what the fuck what's going on and what he didn't
have his own entries till the end of the story. And again, like I said, I think they went into more Dracula lore and stuff, but the only thing that was really added was you got to see that Dracula, how he can control animals and people and stuff, and then he turns into a mist.
Let's not forget about the magical wafer.
The magical wafer?
That they burn, that they used to burn the mud under her head.
It was holy water, right?
Yeah, but, yeah.
Yeah, that's another, I don't know how I forgot about that, because it was... This fucking bugged the shit out of me. So when they were doing whatever with Mina after the blood-sucking incident, they tried to... Van Helsing, like, I don't know, he thumbed her forehead or wafered it, whatever the fuck you said, with holy water, and it burned her, and she has a big, nasty forehead scar. That she's very,
As one should be.
She's very, I'm trying to think of... She feels defiled. You kind of got like a rapey, like she feels dirty. After that, it's always, I'm unclean.
Well, you also got to figure at that point, she's working on being pot vampire.
Yeah.
So if you get holy water plunged into your head, you're probably going to feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm. And then after that with the scar, she just, it gets really heavy into religious overtones about, she's, because she's unclean, because she's one of the vampires now. Like, there's a lot of problems with that arise for her.
And like that's one thing that I wish I was a little clear on. And like I know I realized probably like Lucy turned sooner and quicker because he was doing it more rarely. And like because like Lucy was in this state for like 2 weeks as they traveled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They almost take like almost a month to get to Transylvania to try to beat, Dracula there.
And he really fucking... he made that seem like a whole month worth of reading.
Yeah.
Like, it was ridiculous.
Like, it was literally like the last 10% of the book.
Yeah.
But it was probably the hardest 10% of the book.
It got so boring, which was very disappointing. But
with that being said, and because I think they crammed all that, you know how we said we were missing like 100 pages at the beginning of Dracula?
Yeah.
I almost kind of wish that got put at the end. Or like maybe 50 pages.
Something,
got put at the end just because like to have that disappointing scene at the end.
Well, let's just skip right to the ending because like I said,
it's just a lot of travel.
All the travel stuff did not really add to the story. Even Mina with the thing on her forehead being turning into a vampire really wasn't that important.
Because she would get weird, like she wouldn't eat, she wouldn't sleep unless it was like the daytime.
By the time they got to the Transylvania castle, she's just all she does is sleep during the day. She doesn't eat. She's pretty much a vampire, almost like maybe a couple days away from being full vampire.
Did they ever actually state that, hey, if we kill Dracula, that will kill you? Do they ever like that kind of?
There was a lot of Van Helsing talk, and I think it was
because that's basically what happens, right?
Yeah, but I don't remember if he actually just outright states that that's what would happen, or if it was a hunch. But they do kind of beat around the bush that maybe that would be a thing to do. Either way, they had to kill, because there was a fucking 2 chapters there where they're just the whole time debating whether they should kill Dracula. And they're like, well, why? He's leaving. That's good, right? They're like, no, we got to kill him for Miss Mina. I'm like, well, why? Didn't really explain, but you kind of got the impression that that's what it would be. But once they got to Transylvania, finally, god damn it. You know what? There was one part about the whole boating thing I did like, was the polyglot sailor who kept cussing out Dracula in different languages.
Yeah.
Because he could speak like 50 different languages, and the whole time he just cursed them out in every language, and Dracula just didn't give a shit, I guess. But anyway, we got back to Transylvania, and there is one cool scene, which was, again, the cool scene that you want to see, and they fucking like Bram Stoker just sped right through it. Van Helsing gets to the castle, does like a fancy little circle around them for protection. I forget if he drew it or salt or whatever.
I think more wafers.
Yeah. Wafers. And it was also very snowy. It finally started snowing in Transylvania, so it was getting really snowy and cold.
Which I would never have thought that in Transylvania. Like, you know what I mean? Just anytime when I picture...
Why, is it like Romania or something?
Yeah, but you know, like whenever you, like, in your mind think of Transylvania, do you ever think of snowfall?
No, but you really should, because it's like part Russia.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, technically, but that's just not whatever I...
Yeah, you always think of it just as dark.
Yeah, pretty much.
And rainy. But, the 3 ladies of the castle, the vampire ladies, come out, and, they're trying to seduce Van Helsing, and then he sees Mina's not a vampire yet, because they're trying to get Mina to come with them, but she's, like, horrified still. It's like, okay, that's good. I guess they just bug her off or whatever. And then the cool scene is Van Helsing's like, and he busts into the fucking Dracula's castle, and he's charging, goes into the chapel. I don't know how he got there so easily, because fucking Jonathan Harker had to like climb up the side of the castle, go into Dracula's room, and then fucking go down, and he had to do, like, it was a big ordeal for him to go find this chapel. But just because Van Helsing read some journal entry, he just knew how to get through the castle. He's just like, fuck it. Anyway, going down the dirty chapel. And then he starts opening up graves, and he sees the ladies.
Yeah.
And they are so, not voluptuous, they were voluptuous, but they were so mesmerizing. And he found himself hesitating to kill them. And then he's like, no, I have to. And then he goes on this big thing where he could see how many men tried to kill these ladies, but they were so seduced that they hesitated, and then eventually they just stood there and hesitated until the ladies woke up and ate them.
Yeah.
Well, Van Helsing's not going to make that mistake. Does some head chopping, some fucking chest pounding, some staking. They turn to dust. He gets all 3 of the ladies, and then...
Because I like the one he mentioned, he's like, no sooner than like the spear like struck her heart that they crumbled to like ash.
And I wish I would saved this note. It was a really cool excerpt, where he says something along the lines of the centuries that they lived caught up to him all at once, and then they turned to dust because of how old they were. So that was really cool. And then he instead of waiting for Dracula or whatever, he leaves the castle. Goes out to Mina. Then they're just trekking through the snow, and I guess they find a cave. They're just sleeping in a cave or something. I don't know. This part, again, this was all really rushed at the end. I felt like the last chapter was rushed really fast.
And very, like, happenstance. Because, like, the whole plan was like, hey, we're going to meet up at the castle. And once they get to the castle, and they're like, Dracula's not here, they're just like, let's head east.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll run into them. You know what I mean? Because, like, it's not like there's just one road.
I was really confused how this all transpired because, again, we were fucking led to believe they were going by this plan that he fucking talked about for 10 chapters. And then all of a sudden, it's just Jonathan it's Quincy and I think Seward chasing gypsies who are taking Dracula's in his box to the castle. And they're running really fast. And I don't know why they're like, why wouldn't they just stop? I don't know. But then
getting paid well,
I guess. And then behind them, it was Jonathan Harker and Arthur, I believe, chasing them. And
they just happened to stumble across them.
And this was fucking terrible. So Van Helsing and Mina are just watching from a slight distance.
Yeah.
Van Helsing doesn't even help, does he? Like, I don't think he rushes. I don't remember.
I think they like jump in front of it because they see it coming, so they're able to get like in front, so they're actually surrounding the whole thing, and they just stop.
And then they finally bring out their Winchesters that they've been talking about this time. And then one scene that pissed me off too is because they're kind of tussling with the gypsies. I think Quincy Morris, who up to this point is the most heroic of everybody.
Yeah.
Even though he's in the American, he's the most heroic, but he's barely talked about in the story for the most part. But he's always there. When shit's about to go down, he's the man you want. Well, he gets fucking shanked right in the rib or something. So he's gushing blood. I'm
confused on how that happened. Was that by Dracula?
One of the gypsies stabbed him. No, Dracula never woke up. So one of the gypsies stabbed him. And then finally, like right after that, the gypsy just gave up because they had guns on him. And then they open up the casket. And I think it was Jonathan, right? Who doesn't even go with the formalities that Van Helsing has up to this point. No stake or anything. He just stabs Dracula in the neck and then stabs him in the chest and then turns to dust.
Yeah.
That was the end of it. And then the afterthought is Quincy Morris dies, which was fucking bullshit.
I was thinking, I was wondering, if anybody's gonna die in the story. And I was wondering, I was thinking it could have been Arthur to sacrifice himself to take over, to avenge Lucy.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, it's probably gonna be Morris.
But it didn't make sense why Quincy Morris had to die.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of is he was the one who had, not to do a stupid pun, but he had the least at stake.
Yeah.
He was just the American who he loved Lucy, but that was literally his only connection to these people. He could have just said fuck all and just been out of there. Instead, he decided to help and track down Dracula, and he's the one who ends up dying and kind of saving the day at the same time. But then you're just left thinking, well, why? Like, you obviously kill Arthur or even John Seward to make it because they both love Lucy and they had the most at stake here other than Jonathan Harker. No, you kill Quincy Morris because that's the one that people wouldn't care about as much. So that was bullshit. And then there's like a little prologue where I don't know why the fuck they would do this, but Mina and Jonathan Harker have a baby because the thing on her forehead just magically disappears, the scar.
Yeah, because there's no more vampire in her.
So she's just magically cured. They have a baby, and then they take the baby, who they named Quincy, which I guess was cool, back to where Quincy Morris died at Transylvania by the castle. And then that's just how it ends.
Yeah, because she feels that some part of Quincy's soul is, has kind of came back within their baby to try, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what their idea of kind of like honoring him and kind of carrying him on and stuff like that.
Now, obviously, we rushed.
And then Arthur he-fucking marries.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, you were really in love.
Dick face. But we rushed through this. There were a lot of passages that were very well written, good imagery, things like that. So I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, yeah.
I did really...
As an overall, yeah.
Yeah, our minor bitches aside, I really did like this this whole novel, other than the repetition, and mainly just the last, handful of chapters that just really bogged down, and the ending was very lackluster. Obviously, what you would do, I don't know if he was on a time constraint or what, or just wanted to finish the fucking book, but obviously what you would do is have a cool-ass showdown in Dracula's castle with Dracula. At least from a modern 2020 lens.
And then, another lame thing was after they get to the castle, after Van Helsing takes care of those vampires, he just fills up, Dracula's tomb with wafers.
Yeah.
Just in case if they get past him, he can't ever get back into his tomb because, he can't touch them or anything because they're, burn him or whatever.
Yeah. The ending was lackluster, but... the first, 3/4 of the book are really good.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's not too there's not a lot of repetition before the chapter 20 or so. Again, there's just the writing of the period where you do have to, almost like modern anime, constantly telling you what the fuck just happened. I hate that. It's like, oh man, we killed Lucy. Let me tell you exactly what happened in the scene where we killed Lucy 1 moment ago. It's like, oh, I don't give a fuck. Just, you showed me. I don't need to any reiteration of it.
Well, I would really like to see, this somehow somebody be able to rewrite it and really be true to it, but write it in, a third person form.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Or maybe one person's journal entry or something you know what I mean? Or just an anonymous, somebody who doesn't deal with the character, just telling the story of Dracula and how he affected these people and what they're gonna do. You know what I mean? I think that would serve the story better. But you don't really have a lot of writing, like you said, back during that time period.
Well, that goes with our whole narrator discussion we had a few episodes ago, but I would think, you know what, I need to read Dracula's Guest to see, that's on our website, by the way, drunkenpetwriting.com. You can read it for free, public domain. The Dracula's Guest, I would like to see how that's, because they said that might have been in those first 101 pages that were taken out of this book. So I don't know if that would be journal entry as well. And also just his other novels that I have in that collection.
Yeah.
I would want to check those out to see if Bram Stoker, if that's just his writing style was always using journal entries and first person and things like that, or if he did actually do a third person. Because back then, third person was kind of rare in the horror genre, I feel. Like we talk about H.P. Lovecraft, always first person. Edgar Allan Poe, I think, had a lot of first person. But like I said, overall, very enjoyable book. I liked it, especially for the time period. I liked it way better than Frankenstein or any of the other things I've read of that era.
I mean, I definitely would think, like, and I haven't read a whole bunch of literature, but it's probably one of my favorite things literature-wise that I've read.
Yeah.
Since starting this whole shindig off.
I would say, though, this story would have benefited if it was about 100 or 200 pages less.
Yeah.
Just by taking out a lot of that repetition. A lot of the over-description of things.
Or if it's the same length, but you take that repetition out and put something else in there.
Yeah. Main thing is the stuff that moves the story forward.
Yeah.
You don't need to keep having the same scenes, like the Lucy scenes. We get it that she keeps, getting her blood sucked, but how many times do we have a transfusion scene? 4 times or something?
And, we didn't do any transfusion for Lucy. Or not for Lucy, for Nina at all.
It just didn't make sense why it had to repeat things like that so much. Again, if you just kept the story moving forward, it would have been really good.
And I don't know why they broke up into so many different groups.
That didn't make much sense. And the final showdown with Dracula, that should have been the huge climax.
Yeah.
That's what you're waiting for this whole time. And back then, there wasn't really a playbook of how you would do this kind of story or how it would end. There wasn't a big bad that you'd normally go and have a big showdown with in fiction at the time, other than maybe like Moby Dick.
Yeah.
So I could see why his would just be with the lore of vampires that he was creating. You have to kill them with a stake while they're asleep. I wanted to see awake Dracula. I wanted to see those 3 vampire women awake and battling. Like, I wanted to see Van Helsing and Jonathan Harker fighting their way through the castle.
Cool thing about the end scene is, they're trying to catch Dracula because the sun is literally just about to set.
Yeah.
So, even if, there
was that sense of urgency with the setting sun and Dracula's going to wake up.
So,
they do kill him at the last possible minute.
Yeah. So it would have been cool somehow if they would have been able to do something where they kept him confined until the sun got out, and it was just him trying to escape, but the sun just came up and he just gets dusted that way or something. I don't know, but yeah, it needs
that's one trope
different.
That's one trope that's not in this is the vampire burning to death in the sun.
Yeah,
it's just said that they sleep through the sun during the daytime, and they don't like the sun, I guess, but it never explains that vampires, if they go in the sun, they get burned or die or anything. At least from what I remember.
No. I think it was just more Nina just being I think it almost kind of would make them sick.
Yeah.
And if they were out for too long, it probably would kill them, but it's not an immediate burst into flames kind of scenario.
It's not really stated that it's a danger for them.
I think more it's kind of like the Superman kryptonite.
Yeah.
Kind of. It weakens them,
I would also like to see more of a sacrifice at the end. Instead of just Quincy Morris getting stabbed and dying almost off camera. That's how it felt. It just kind of happened. It was oh, well, it's just Quincy Morris. I would have rather them going in the castle and fighting or something, and maybe Jonathan Harker gets stabbed, or Van Helsing gets stabbed, or bitten or something, or maybe Mina's about to turn. Her fangs pop, she's about to turn into a vampire. Bram Stoker could have said it, once you turn into the vampire, you're done. It doesn't matter if you kill Dracula, you're stuck that way. So they could have made that some sense of urgency.
That, or, and I've seen this in other kind of vampire stories, but Nina turns into a vampire, but with her last shred control, she uses her vampire powers to kill Dracula, which then also kills her, but saves everybody else.
Which would have been a really cool scene. There's so many things that could have... obviously vampire fiction since then has capitalized on the exact complaints we're having of how to make a better ending for such a story.
And you said earlier that this is very much one of the first of its kind of scenarios. So
that's the same with Frankenstein or a lot of H.P. Lovecraft work. When you actually go back to the original source material, it's a lot more boring. Sleepy Hollow is a good example. It did not have the cool imagery that we know of Sleepy Hollow. Yeah. It just was a slightly cool gothic story, but it didn't really go anywhere.
Or a more modern example would be like Watchmen. young kids now, they can read Watchmen, and they'll be like, it's okay, but like I don't quite get it because like so much stuff from comics from now got that from like that edgy adultness. They got that from like that and the Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that. But before that, before those two books, like that wasn't really a thing. But now there's so much based off of that it kind of almost like the things that get based off of it almost kind of get diminished because it's it's not the new thing anymore.
Well, if you don't start with the source material. And a lot of times just because you're not born at the time, so why would you read Dracula before you read whatever modern...
Or if you did read Dracula, you probably weren't reading, like, Bram Stoker's actual Dracula. Yeah. You were reading some, like, watered-down, like, version you got from, like, school or something, the library from school.
But there's so many like you were saying with the Watchmen example, it gets expanded on so much, and usually a short period of time. So just the 90s alone, expanding on Watchmen, that kind of storytelling and adult situations and stuff in comic books, that by the time, say, a kid in 2020 starts reading comics or novels, or vampire novels or whatever it be, if they go back to the source material after that stuff, like when we read, which I would imagine would be the same with Casino Royale, but when we read Chandler, what was that, The Big Sleep?
Yeah.
The noir fiction, how it actually started. You're like, oh, well, I mean, I could kind of see the roots of this, but it's very boring.
Not what I was expecting.
Yeah, it's not as exciting. It's not, because the modern versions
are fine-tuned.
They're fine-tuned, and when they expand on it, they take all the good parts without all the shitty, boring parts. So when you have a Dracula, if you had a newer vampire story, you're going to get all those big scenes you want to see, and all the vampire lore that you want to hear about, but none of the other stuff that should have been, should be left in the 1900s.
And then you always see that because, especially now everything's remaked, rebooted, and so there's so many examples of different things. You're like, oh, that works there. We can use something like that. That doesn't work. That was fucking stupid. Let's not make them sparkle anymore. Never do that again. But
Also, when it comes to things like tension building, if you're reading the end of Dracula through the not a modern lens, like just back then before there was real action and all kinds of shit, movies weren't even really a thing. So if you were reading Dracula back then, when the sun's going down and Dracula's very close to waking up and they have to kill him at the last possible second, that might have been actually a lot more exciting versus us reading it now, who was like, no, you have to have a fight scene. You need to, because things they amplify over time. So, for a book that's over 100 years old, fucking excellent still.
Oh, yeah.
It definitely holds up.
One plot hole, and maybe I just can't remember, I might have just read over it, but is there any reason they give why John survives from being in the castle? Like, he's found with the brain fever, but like...
I never got how he escaped.
Yeah, like, why didn't Dracula... Did he escape?
It didn't really... Yeah, it didn't explain. He didn't get bit. He didn't get turned into a vampire. Did Dracula just let him go? That wouldn't make sense.
Because I was thinking almost like the brain...
Did he mind control him?
That's why I was thinking maybe that's where the brain fever came from, was like, from his doing.
But if he didn't escape, why would he have his diary with him?
Yeah, that's what I don't know. And because they never, he tries to escape a couple times, but it never works. That was one thing that I was confused about that I've been meaning to try to bring up the past couple episodes.
Yeah, they didn't really...
So just small things like that. Do you know when this was originally published, was it just published as like a novel?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this was just outside of when there was mainly things published in magazines. And even back then, like, even if it was published in magazines, it would have been like the main story of Dracula. Like, it would have been still like a novel. So
I thought maybe that might have been a reason to cause some of the weird storytelling choices and stuff, as if it's getting put out in segments maybe. And
well, also like we said about the first 101 pages being taken out by the editor, how much did the editor change the story too?
Yeah,
because maybe Bram Stoker, this was a 1,000-page book, and he fucking really, really went into detail on stuff, and the editor's like, nah, get all that shit out of there. And then that's what, we got the final product. But anyway, we're not going to do a bookcast. We're just going to do like a book review. We'll be reading Casino Royale. That'll be in the coming weeks or month.
Yeah.
So,
no hard date yet.
No, I need a break. I need a break from older fiction. I need to read some new shit or newer shit.
Or just stuff that you want to read just to read.
Pleasure reading.
Because like as we said, as good as like this was and stuff like that, And also, I think because we were talking about it was becoming a chore because we was like, we have to read it because we both were like, we have to have it done by today so we can talk about it. So, like, you know, that kind of can put a damper on even a book that you are enjoying at a time.
Yeah, that sense of urgency to finish through it. Though the BookCast format does make me read books that I've been putting off. So that's always good. Because Dracula was one I always wanted to read, but I wasn't going to read on my own, probably. Like, it's like fucking almost 500 pages long.
Is that what it? Because like
it's like 400 something.
Well, I wasn't sure because like the Kindle version I got was just a Kindle.
I think it's
edition, so it didn't have a page count.
I think it's 456 or something along those
lines. That seems about right because it took about like 3 or 4 weeks to finish.
Yeah.
So that's about like 100 pages a week.
Right. If you want to, this is going to be out in November, so our horror stuff is all done, I guess, on the website.
We'll probably still have some stuff trickling out, though, don't we?
Yeah, we have a few stories going to be trickling out, but you can go to drunkenpenwriting.com for all that stuff, and we'll be doing new things here soon once I get a nice break from submissions and shit.
Yeah.
You can go on Twitter at drunkenpenwriting, Instagram and Facebook at drunkenpenwriting to check out other stuff we do. I don't know. I'm sure we do something.
Do we?
I don't know. Anyway, thanks for listening, and no more Surge content. We're done. It's a problem. I've kicked it. I've kicked it. Though it's going to be odd because I think I did a Surge in like the last Dracula episode, which is going to be a week after an episode where I don't do the Surge content because things are a little fluey with our recording because we're doing double episodes a week, but we're going to be going back to normal fairly soon. So stick around for that.